Before we get started, I want to give huge shout outs to community partners Epilepsy Foundation of America and the Danny Did Foundation. Also, big thanks to Neurelis and SK Life Science. Thanks so much, y'all, for believing in this podcast and making conversations like this possible. Okay, here we go. Hey guys, welcome to What the F. So if you're listening and you're in the United States, you're just coming off of a long weekend for Memorial Day. And that's a time when we honor our fallen veterans. And it's also, I feel like, an appropriate time to bring on a veteran and talk about his experience with epilepsy. So everyone, please welcome Captain Jack Summers. Jack, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. It's amazing.
Yeah, I really appreciate you joining this podcast and having this conversation. And I was just wondering, before we get started, if you wouldn't mind telling everyone a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, of course. So I'm Jack Summers. I grew up outside Chicago and then joined the Marine Corps after college and was in the Marines for about 6 years. I was a captain when I was medically discharged or retired from the Marines. And then after that, I moved up here to Santa Monica. It's paradise. So I've lived here pretty much since end of 2012. With a little bit of time sprinkled in there with San Diego, a little time with Chicago, and that's me in a nutshell.
So mostly paradise places, and then Chicago's only paradise place like in the summer. That's the only time.
I mean, you have just like a little bit there, but love Chicago, great place, but I prefer not to freeze or overheat if I can avoid it. Yeah.
Same. But I love that. I love that for you, that you are living the dream out in Santa Monica. So I was wondering if you could share, because you did mention you were medically discharged, just how that relates to your epilepsy.
Yeah. So I was deployed twice. I was an infantry officer. And so I deployed twice in 2009 and then 2010. Never had a seizure before, but when I came back from my deployment to Afghanistan, there was an undiagnosed traumatic brain injury when I was in Afghanistan. It was a pretty, kinetic area. And when I came back about 2 months.
Just real quick, when you say kinetic, for like those of us who are very ignorant, like myself, about military terminology, what does that mean when it's a kinetic area?
Yeah, so there was quite a bit of combat operations. It was there were quite a few Taliban insurgent fighters in the area. I was specifically in Sangin in 2010, which it was just a really busy place to be. I'm so grateful that I had a chance to be there and to work with the Marines and sailors that I did. But that relates to my epilepsy because it was very likely due to a grenade blast that caused a traumatic brain injury. And then about 2 to 3 months after I returned home in Chicago, I had my first seizure. I was running the turkey trot, the Thanksgiving turkey trot with my family. And I think I finished first. I'm sure I was up there, but
I love that. You're like, I think. You're like, I don't know, but probably. Yeah.
I hope so. I'm pretty sure.
Well, a Marine coming in, probably did. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I hope so. But that's actually part of it is after I passed the finish line, that's when I experienced my first seizure, and it was a complex partial. So I didn't lose consciousness. I just was not aware of my surroundings. I didn't know who the people were. And it's a really close-knit community where I grew up in the northwest suburbs of Chicago. And so a lot of these friends were, and parents' friends and, so on and so forth. They were being extremely warm and welcoming and saying, just like, welcome home and how are you? How's everything going? And this is just what I have, because there's small little memories that I have of this event. but I didn't know who these people were. And
You
it
mean like
was
in
like,
that moment, but like
yeah,
in reality, you did know who they were, but in that
absolutely.
moment,
Yeah.
oh, okay, yeah,
Yeah.
that's
So
terrifying.
they're people that I grew up with, and
Mm-hmm.
very, very, like, my best friends, some of my best friends, and their parents, who I had, we were riding our bikes, going off jumps when we were 8 years old, and I knew they were my best friends,
Yeah,
and
child of
they're,
the '80s. I get it.
yeah,
That's what we
exactly,
did.
nailed
Uh-huh.
it.
Yeah.
So you didn't need a driver's license for that one. um, and so that was my first experience. I kind of blacked out and just remember certain people at, I must have been a few minutes or something, where all of a sudden I was aware that something happened, and I then just was like fight or flight, and I said, get away, like, leave this. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know where I'm at. I don't know who these people are.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just kind of walked, I guess, walked away, and slowly things started coming back to me. And I started recognizing, maybe a house, or, there's a little baseball field where we were, and certain
Mm-hmm.
things just started
Yeah.
coming together. And that was my first experience. And then after that, obviously, over the next 12 or 18 months, that's when it was like the floodgates opened. And I think many probably experience this. Hopefully not as many as yeah, hopefully not many,
But
um,
probably. Yeah.
but probably, yeah, probably, and sadly, is that first one. Then all of a sudden they started rolling in, and then I had the complex partials. Then I had drop seizures and grand mal seizures,
Oh my
and
gosh.
over the next 18 months, that was kind of the new life that I was being introduced to. Hey, this is what it might look like for a while. And in all seriousness and honesty, I didn't want to share these seizures with anybody. Being a Marine, and where I was doing what I loved, I knew that it would take me out of the Marines. But there also came a point where I knew that there was a level of responsibility and accountability that I had to maintain to
Mm-hmm. So this was
fairly
when you were
lead.
still an active Marine.
Yeah,
When
exactly.
this happened, you hadn't been
Yeah,
medically discharged. The medical discharge came as a result of the seizures.
exactly. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Oh, that had to be so heartbreaking for you. I'm sorry.
No,
That-
yeah.
but that is brutal.
It was challenging, and hiding them because I didn't know what they were. Like,
Right.
I had not, as I started having several seizures, I was kind of like, maybe I just was low on electrolytes, or maybe I need to, maybe I didn't get enough sleep, or I really pushed myself for a week and a half on some training operation, and then all of a sudden I come out and I go for a run, and I have no idea where I am. I have no idea what's happening. I just would run and
Yeah.
then walk and then run and walk, and even waking up on the ground and being like, what the heck just happened? And I have no
Yeah.
idea. I wanted to, there's a level of, like, individual protection that you take on because you don't know what's happening. And when I found out that these really were seizures is when I had one in front of my Marines, and I had a grand mal seizure. And that one, I woke up in the hospital and they said, hey, you had a seizure. And then I really
Wow.
was able to connect the dots to saying, oh man, I think what I've been experiencing, although not the same, is it's this really, really strange experience that I couldn't uh, explain. And I never had it before, but now they just told me that I had a grand mal seizure. I just kind of connected the dots, and I was like, man, I think I've been having a bunch of seizures. And
And you
so,
know what? I feel like that's such a common epilepsy diagnosis, like
yeah,
process is like, well, then I put it all together. because like we don't think like, especially that first seizure you just described, it makes sense that you wouldn't automatically assume it's a seizure,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Or, and you think something else is going on. I think this is also like due to lack of education and awareness in society about
100%.
epilepsy.
Yeah.
Because like now you and I, after, having some years in the epilepsy world, can look back and be like, oh no, that was totally a seizure. But at the time, no idea.
No idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh
And
my
it's
gosh.
the you want to know what's going on, but you don't really want to know if it's going to have a serious impact on your professional life, on your personal life, whether that's, hey, you're maybe professionally in the Marines, it's one strike, but if you get two strikes, then you're out. And it's not three strikes, it's two. If you have one seizure, you go on light duty for 6 months. If you have two seizures, then you get medically separated. And there's a level, and I think a lot of other folks experience this who, maybe they're a police officer, firefighter, or in some type of military position or public service position, that it could have a catastrophic impact on your career. And personally, you don't want to lose your driver's license. We've talked about that. This is, I basically have driver's license like written everywhere in my room. But
why do you do that?
Just that's my goal. I mean, that is my personal goal because it includes so much. Like if you just say, I want my driver's license back, that level of independence that we have when you drive, it's like, it's so much more than just driving though, but it's a goal that if I set, I'm like, okay, that means I need to be, 2 weeks without a seizure, or I need to take my medications all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I want to go 1 month without a seizure. That means I need to take my meds. That means I need to get good night's rest. I need to make sure I'm hydrated. I need to be eating healthy. I need to stay away from those triggers if it's certain lighting. And so all of a sudden these things kind of fall into place because it's like, this is all to get my driver's license. Like I want to drive and be able to just drop the windows, turn up the music and drive. It doesn't have to be anywhere. It's like your space. You have that.
I literally just felt it. Like I felt myself like behind the wheel of a car with like the wind coming in, and like the music cranking. Yeah. And it is such a thing of independence. And I'm very lucky because I live in Chicago. And so like the public transportation is really good. Right.
Yeah.
But I also love being in nature. And anytime like we travel somewhere that's like not a city, that's when it hits me how dependent I am, because otherwise I'm just stuck. Like if we go to like a cabin in the woods, I'm not leaving that cabin alone. Like I'm literally just there until someone can drive me somewhere. And I think there's a lot more. I like how you're layering it, and there's a lot more to it than like just the driver's license and just the ability to drive. It is the self-sufficiency and the freedom and the joy that comes with it.
Exactly. Yeah. And I felt that. I live out here, obviously Santa Monica, and ever since having seizures, it's been really important to live somewhere that's temperate in its weather, but also where I can get around walking, because I don't want to put myself. It's good for the mind, body, and soul, and it makes you happy, and that's so much more fun than being sad and upset. And if it's just one thing that I can do, it's all right. Let's keep the weather like temperate. Let's make sure that there's no highs and lows, which are a trigger for me to have seizures. Let's keep it temperate and not have to worry about the weather, not have to worry about adjusting my clothing really for it. I mean, if it's 58 degrees, I am really bundled up out here, but
it's where you're from back here, we are like sunbathing.
I know. Yeah, like bust out the board shorts,
Yeah.
like
The flip flops are out.
guns out,
Someone's
guns out.
drinking
And you're
on a
like, dude,
patio somewhere. Yeah, it's
yeah.
yeah,
Who's having
totally.
the barbecue?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So that is a part of it, is staying in that temperate weather so
Mhm.
that it helps me with my seizures, and being around like areas where I can just walk. I could bike if I wanted to. Maybe before I was a little bit, I used to bike a lot. Um, but when I was in Chicago, I noticed over the pandemic, I was so fortunate to live with my parents. I went back there and everything was pretty much closed down here. So I went back to Chicago, ended up working with my parents on their family business. A little shout out to Musketch. It's amazing. Mustard and ketchup, 3 different flavors. It's bomb. But that notwithstanding is I noticed how, like you were saying with the cabin, that everybody was driving around and
Yeah.
I was just kind of stuck
Yeah, the
because
suburbs
my,
are tough in Chicago. Like, I think anyway. Like, and that's, we both grew up in the suburbs of Chicago. And whenever I'm
yeah,
out there, I feel like suffocated because I can't move. Like, I can
yeah,
walk, but like to get anywhere in the suburbs and walking is really, really fucking far. So,
it is. And,
yeah.
even if I have 5 brothers and sisters, 4 of them live right in the suburbs, like right around me or right around my parents. And, walking even 5 blocks when it's negative 10 degrees, you're like, I think I'm just going to stay in.
Yeah,
Like, thank you. But,
totally.
and in Uber out there, I know this is kind of small potatoes, but I think it adds up into the bushel where it's like, hey, I think that's what potatoes are, bushel.
We'll
Is,
roll with it. I have no idea.
yeah, potatoes, whatever. But it was that I would get an Uber and it's like, yeah, I'll be there in 15 minutes. And, you're spending 20-30 bucks just to go a couple of miles where you're sitting inside. And all of a sudden you're
Yeah,
like, dude, this is, it's not healthy for me. It's not healthy. I felt that it
totally.
wasn't healthy because it wasn't just that I wasn't going other places. It's that it was so difficult to do it that I didn't want to anymore. And when that
Yes.
happens, then it's kind of, in my mind, it's this downward spiral of isolation. And
100%.
yeah, and part of it is due to a medical condition. The other part is, hey, it's really challenging to do this. And I don't want to, miss my medications, or I'm already beat. It was a long day and now I'm going to have to go through all of this just to go over somewhere, maybe see some people. And honestly, I'm just not going to do that.
Well,
Whereas
yeah, and
here,
it's like it's gonna
I would
cost
be
you
like,
like
yeah,
$60. It's
And
like gonna
now I'm
cost you
gonna have
60
to go
bucks to
through
go hang out
all
with
of
your
this
friends. And that's like
just to go
before
yeah,
over
ordering the
somewhere,
pizza, you know?
maybe see
It's
some
like
exactly.
people,
And
it's
it's
and
like
like, or
honestly, I'm
you
just not
show up
gonna do
empty
that.
handed and I'm like, hey guys, like this is a sweet
right.
party. They're like, what'd you bring? I'm like, dude, nothing. Like I couldn't Uber over to the Jewel and then Uber over here. It would have been way more expensive than this gift of wine anyways. So,
Right. And if
you
you're
know,
not in the Chicagoland area, Jewel is our grocery store,
oh
like
yeah,
our
yeah,
OG grocery store.
yeah,
Yeah, totally. And also like for me anyway, lately, like the fear of having a seizure in a long Uber ride is like really terrifying to me.
yeah,
Because you had mentioned too that, epilepsy impacted your personal life. And like when you and I have had conversations before, you've described it as like your blast radius, which is a term I absolutely love because I think it's so applicable to so many things, but epilepsy and people living with epilepsy in particular. So I was just wondering
yeah.
if you could speak to like what the blast radius means for you and how you think it applies to epilepsy.
Yeah. So obviously being in the Marines and being an infantry officer, worked with a lot of explosives, a lot of munitions. And one of those, the term that we got to know pretty was very familiar to us was this blast radius concept, and every different munition has its own uh, individual or unique blast radius. And the farther away you are from the explosion, the better off you traditionally are. And so you want to really get to the outside rings or beyond. And um, that it's kind of over the years, I've looked at epilepsy as having its own blast radius, having its own explosive power. Like it can be devastating, but it is an explosion. And I kind of thought of this because after years of having epilepsy, I knew that some of my behaviors were changing. I knew that certain like logic and rationality were a little bit different. Maybe my personality has changed in ways. And I noticed that people who unconditionally love me, without a doubt, and I love them, everything, they're everything to me. They It was hard for them to see me so vulnerable, having a seizure and being in this total state of vulnerability and not knowing what's going on, and then unleashing on them sometimes because I was so frustrated, and still am many times, so frustrated and not so confused that I hold that energy in, and then it's not even the seizure. Sometimes it's me, it's like a pressure valve, and I just release this energy that I've been trying to hold because I don't want people to see it. I don't want them to worry about me. And then all of a sudden I blast off, and I get really upset at a situation, and maybe someone sees me as like, what's going on? Like, you shouldn't have been that upset. I'm like, no, this is crazy. I'm done with this. It's over. And these blasts keep popping up. And over the years, I looked at that. I'm like, it's an explosion. And people, friends, family, I just saw that there was this natural kind of movement to the outer rings and even outside of that blast radius, because they have their own families. They have their own professional careers. They are doing a lot. They've got kiddos to take care of. And so being around me, if I'm like a loose cannon sometimes, and I'm not, like, that's not how I was, but certain things, it's like that triggers me to release pressure and frustration. And it's not always directed at the right people or activities or anything. Totally. And so I noticed that only certain people could still stay within my like blast radius. It's so painful for them. It can be so devastating, and they're confused. All they want is to see you happy and healthy. And instead they're seeing you frustrated and upset and not healthy. And they're getting hurt by that, but they're also getting hurt by these secondary effects of me being so frustrated that I'm blasting off on them. And so this just and my father, he has Parkinson's, and my mom, she's so incredible. They both are. But when we lived together, I didn't know about this post-traumatic epilepsy. I was diagnosed with epilepsy in 2012, but then I was diagnosed with post-traumatic epilepsy, or drug-resistant post-traumatic epilepsy, in 2022. And my parents, my mom especially, she's in my dad's blast radius, which is unique to him and Parkinson's, and how long he's had it, which is 10 years now. And then my mom is within my blast radius, and we were living together. And so whether it's
during
a seizure,
2020, right? Like during a high stress period.
Yeah. This was 2022, and we were living together. And those blast radiuses, the part about it is it's so unique to each person, and understanding who is in your blast radius and what their blast radius is. Start to look at
Yes.
relationships in this way and saying, hey, it's not just the person is like this, it's how often are they blasting off? What kind of radius is that? Is it a small one where they blast off, but it's just a little pop? And you're like,
Yeah.
okay, great. Now I can understand how maybe I blast off and then my dad gets upset for something else. We have two neurological conditions, and my mom is just smack dab in the middle, just doing everything she can to help us, to support us. And it's like impossible for me to even recognize why she's still there. Like, almost like, get away from me. I'm causing so much damage that just, you need to go away from me. Just get away. Like, almost just recognize my blast radius and
and
to try to protect
yourself.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's really common with people with epilepsy, just in the sense where, but like you said, everyone's blast radius looks different, has a different range. You know, and I feel like mine would be like my severe depression that I go into after a seizure, where it's just like, it's really hard to be around me because it's just like 4 days of like the worst type of depression. And I understand what you mean when you say like some people just can't be near it, right? And even though it sounds like our blast radius look a lot different, it still is something that is manifested due to epilepsy. And something that we've both learned a lot about other people's bandwidth as well as our own, and like kind of like how to manage that, you know? And I'm just curious, like I don't know if you've seen any sort of change in, you know, how you manage it. Just like since because you've been on a long journey with epilepsy, like a long, arduous journey where it's like, you know, just how you said before, like, well, we knew I had epilepsy, but we didn't know I had, you know, post-traumatic drug-resistant epilepsy, you know, like all of those things. Like there's just so many layers in that sentence and so many stories under there. But I'm curious as to like how and if like you felt like your development to your blast radius changed.
It was huge when I looked at it, and this made so much sense to me, where it was not just the acute events having the seizure, but it was the anxiety that I had. It was anxiety, it was depression, it was sleep issues, and those led to, hey, maybe I wouldn't want to go out on an event. Maybe I was not feeling it, and I'm like, no, I'm not doing it. They're like, you know, please come on, Jack. And I'm like, no, I'm not doing it. Just leave it alone. It's done. I'm not going. And that's part of my blast radius. And so I started recognizing that, hey, in order to go to this event, let's do a few things and let's start to mentally prepare for this event and not act as if I'm just going to say no. I'm going to go, and now let's get in the mood for it. Not for anyone else really, but for me to actually have fun.
Sure.
And my family will enjoy that. And so recognizing that, instead of just saying, man, I'm just not going to go. And I wouldn't tell people that I was just really anxious, or that I had a massive headache, or that I didn't sleep well. So I'm not going. Like, you're not going to move me off of my position. It's done. Once I saw that was a part of my blast radius, was saying no to things in order to protect myself and protect them from seeing me in that position, I was like, okay, now how do I address this? Like, what are things that when I blast, what types of things can I do to better manage that? And it became very important to recognize those, and I didn't need to tell anybody, so I could still protect myself. And that was huge, is that I didn't have to tell people, hey, I'm overcoming, I had a seizure and I didn't tell anybody about it, or I have really bad anxiety, I'm not going to tell you about it. It was, Jack, what can I do to feel better so that I can have fun, and my family will benefit from that. They'll have fun because they're like, damn, Jack it's no longer Jack's just in a good mood and that's why he's having fun. And I had like pretty severe mood issues. I was like, I've got to get it to where it's me, but I still can protect myself. I don't have to tell everybody what's going on. Right. I can just subtly look at a situation and someone says, hey, Jack, by the way, we're going to dinner tonight. And it's like, okay, I'm a little anxious. I don't know what, who's going to be there or how I'm going to interact because it's tough with big groups. I'm like, don't worry. Let's get into my own mentality, and you don't have to lie, and you also don't have to let down your short sword and shield. You can still keep it where you want it, but you're like, okay, I'm protected because I've done what I need to do to be there mentally, and everything else is out of my control. So just don't worry, Jack. Like, it's okay.
I love that. Because you're really honoring your own privacy, right? But also honoring your limits and being like, okay, I do have these limits, so how can I adjust them?
Yeah.
My husband Steve likes to call it filling out the paperwork.
Yeah,
he'll be like, okay, for gonna go to dinner tonight, got to fill out that paperwork, which usually means I need to take a nap.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like, and he's always just like, file the permits. Come on, we got to do this. We got to do the thing. And I'm like, that's so true. Like, and so now that's just what I like too, is instead of him like saying like, please go take a nap, which, as caring and wonderful as that is, it just sounds so infantilizing, right? You're just like, oh, but he'll just say now, he'll be like, okay, we need to go fill out your permits. And I'm like, Roger that. I got it.
That's awesome. I love that.
Yeah. But I do really appreciate you sharing that, just because like, it is, we don't always want to like tell everyone what we've done to get there that night. It's like, we just want to enjoy that and enjoy that night. And, but sometimes you might want to, it's just kind of like respecting your own safe space, essentially.
And that's so important, especially, to, I think a lot of folks. I can speak to the military community, veteran community. I mean, but there's so many communities. And I know you, super active, a very, strong woman who you just have so much energy and like power in your presence. You don't want people to know that, and saying, I'm sorry, I'm not going to join. I'm sorry, I can't make it. I'm sorry, no, I'm not going there. It just became this, holy cow, like, how many times am I going to apologize until they're just going to stop asking me?
Right.
And that's what it came to. I mean, that is part of my blast radius, is that I wouldn't go. I would still apologize, though. I wouldn't, sometimes, other times I just tell them to like fuck off and be like, no, I'm not going, like, fucking eat it. So, but there were other times where I did feel bad. A lot of times I felt bad, and I just didn't know how to get past it other than saying, I'm sorry. Like, I'm just not going to go. Well, why? I'm just not going to go. I'm sorry. And
and I think sometimes that's easier than explaining the full reason. Like,
that's exactly it.
It's just like, okay, so I got shitty sleep last night. I've been anxious all day. I'm really worried that I might be poking a seizure. But like, it's not fun to share that when someone's like, come meet us out, and you're like,
It's like your face is melting off of you, and you're just like, you know, that's literally, so when I first started talking about this, that's where I wanted to go, and I actually totally forgot. So
do, man.
Yeah, but that's like, that's exactly it, is I didn't want to explain why, because it doesn't, you're like, the repercussions of me doing what you're asking me to do, the possibility that I have a seizure versus the possibility that, it just turns into kind of a rough night or something like that. It's like, those are two totally different outcomes.
Yep.
And I do have a very real potential to have a seizure, not just to have a shitty night because I don't want to be there. And so if you don't have epilepsy, I totally understand. There's times you're going to say no. There's times that you're going to be very strong and hold your position. And there's a lot of times, I'm sure, where they say, hey, I'm sorry, just not feeling well, or I'm just not, just not feeling good, been anxious or whatever. There's a lot of those very same reasons that are put into this capsule that I deliver to the recipient who's asked me to do something. It's like, oh, here you go, take this one. And they're like, what's in this? And I'm like, you'll never know. Just take it though. Like, here's a glass of water, just take it. They're like, what's in it? I'm like, you'll never know. Like, that's how I would, that's my secret, would be to give them that, and they'll never know, but take it. Like, you have to. And it's like, is this the red pill or the blue pill? I'm like, yeah, I don't know. It's the pill. So welcome to Jack's Matrix. Yeah. So,
well,
and that's
exhausting really, too, just being 100%. Like, no. Yeah. Like, and it's not out of, and then like, it's exhausting just typing, I am very bummed. I can't do this, but I can't do this, or not can't, but like, because I just read this whole thing about don't say can't, say I'm choosing. And it's like, I'm choosing not to do this so that I don't, possibly put myself at more risk for a seizure. Yeah. It's just an exhausting thing to continuously tell people.
Exactly. And the people, I know it from doing this with like my mom, dad, family. I'm very serious when I say there's a point where they just stop asking. And it's not like my parents stopped asking. They were just very considerate about whether they should expect me to join an event and how they presented the event to me, where it was like this transformation from, hey, we're going here, like, you can ride with us or you can ride with Paul, one of my brothers, to, hey, Jack, we're going to be going to this event. We're going to have dinner. We're going to meet up with aunt and uncle, and you're more than welcome, but no obligation. Don't feel stressed about it or anything. And why this was so helpful, but it was also, after an amount of time, I realized that was them defending me, which is incredible. But it was also them recognizing that I had something going on that I was not explaining to them, and that was really hurting me. And that it was that this is not a win-win. They were just trying to be more compassionate, more considerate to the fact that I will probably say no. But then I thought about it. I was like, it's because they're just not expecting me to join anymore. And I'm like, I'm so social. Like, that sucks. That they're helping me. This is them in my blast radius and trying to help me, and me recognizing that they're in my blast radius. And it hurts me to know that they're still there, hurting them, and them defending me to other family members and saying, hey, Jack Jack wasn't able to make it, but let's have fun tonight, or Jack wasn't feeling well. And that's a lot of them defending and putting energy into it and making sure that they're convincing other people that Jack isn't just totally off the rails, where it's like,
yeah, which like I kind of feel is I don't know, as soon as you said like there's no expectation for me to come, I felt like relief, you know, because when people, because like you said, it is a form of compassion, of just being like, listen,
100%.
I know
Absolutely.
you've got a lot going on, you know. And I think it's like it just gets so tangled in expectation and disappointment and compassion and all of those things, like on both sides of it, right? It just kind of gets all tangled, and it's like, if we could just accept what everyone is capable or incapable of doing, wouldn't that just be wonderful? And I think like part
you
of
just
it
gave me the
acceptance-
goosebumps. Like literally, I have goosebumps from saying that, from hearing you saying it gets so tangled. That's exactly it. And how I felt.
Well, and that's literally what I was thinking as you're talking through this, because it's not like there's one right answer, and I think that's part of what sucks. It's like there's not one way to go about any of this, right?
Yeah.
It's not only tailored for every person, but it's tailored for every situation, and like it can, you know, and there's always going to be the imperfection of it. And I think like part of it too is just like our own acceptance of being unable or making the right choice to not go or to not attend. And like kind of, you know, it's because there's such, for me anyway, there's always anger in that. I always get so angry about it when I can't go to something I really want to, just because I'm making the better choice for myself. And then, you know, and then I feel like the self-compassion comes later, you know, like hopefully.
Yeah, definitely. Like that comes way later. And that's part of this, is that's when I blast off. One of them, not just the seizure, but that all of that energy of saying, hey, you say no enough times and you're like, I'm getting so frustrated because I can't bust through this. I can't break through this barrier that's preventing me from just going out, just going to dinner with my parents, just going to dinner with some friends. And I can't break through this. And so then, and it still happens. It's not like, at least the blast radius works for me because it gives me a better sense of how to manage me personally. But that's so frustrating that it builds up, that energy builds up. And then it's just like, if somebody asks me to go to one more thing, one more time, I am going to go absolutely bananas. And that's the type of, you know, like that's where all of a sudden it is explosive, because all I want to do is say, guys, I just can't go. I'm so anxious about this event or about this, and I haven't been able to sleep the past couple nights. I missed my meds. I don't know if I've eaten today. I'm just not in a good place. And this was before I kind of started to think about how I could handle this better. And I know that it would be like, if one more person asked me to go to something that I don't want to go to, like, I feel sorry for that person. Like, I'm very sorry, but I'm going to snap, and not in like, and I'm being totally honest, like I would just be so enraged to be like, and this person gets it. And that person might not have asked me to go anywhere. I've been asked by 3 people to go to 5 events. I've said no to each one of them, just saying, if that's the case, said no to each one of them. And then one person who just happens to be the unlucky person asked me to go somewhere. And I just, like, it's, you know, I'm like knife handing this person, like, how dare you? How dare you do this? And it's like, that person is just like wrong place, wrong time.
Yeah.
And like, that's part of me. And those were some of the things where I was like, man, that person didn't deserve it. Like, nobody does, but that person really didn't deserve it. And that sucks. Like,
Yeah.
I just went off on them, and that was a horrible experience for that person, I'm sure. And in that moment, nothing matters to me other than releasing all the stress and pressure and anger that I haven't been able to go to events or make, join phone calls or Zoom, movie watch time with friends or family, whatever it might be. I don't know.
Right. It's like even the simplest stuff, right? It's just like, so like, I don't know. And I feel like when someone's like, you want to meet for dinner at 7 on a Tuesday? I'm like, are you insane? Like, no.
Yeah. Yep.
Like,
see you there.
Yeah, no, I'll be in my pajamas. I'll have been in my pajamas since 5. So I don't know why you think, yeah, it's just the simple things that I think, thing you and I both have in common is that we got epilepsy later in life, both from post-traumatic incidents, as mine being brain surgery. But, and I think so we know the other side. We know saying yes to all that stuff. And we know what it is, and for me anyway, it's been like letting go of that has also been really challenging, and like, which kind of weaves into the acceptance of epilepsy, which for me is very fluid. Like, I feel like some days I accept it and some days I'm like, fuck this noise, whatever, and just ignore it,
absolutely.
Which, like, and for me, that's just always important to remind myself that, like, acceptance isn't like, okay, I accept it and that's that. It's like, no, this is something I will continuously have to re-accept over and over and over again, because I lived 32 years without it. So like, it's, like rewiring your brain that is now having seizures and also medicated. And so I feel like it just takes a little bit longer. But
yeah. I mean, it's, and with a lot of things, I was actually talking to the woman that I was working with for this little B-roll thing today. Hence why I was sweating so much at the beginning of this. But we were talking, and I've never really thought of epilepsy. So many people are like, hey, everyone with this condition, it's very unique to that person. And I believe that, or I believe that, but I didn't want to just chalk it up to, well, then how are we going to work together if everybody is different, but we have the one common, or that we have epilepsy. And obviously there's so many rare forms that we have these small kind of nodes within this epilepsy network.
Yes.
But I found it increasingly more difficult to find common ground because each story was so unique. And just today, actually, this morning, I was talking with the videographer, and she was saying how incredible the brain is, just like from her perspective. And, being in this space you and I are in, where they're looking at not just the brain, but how certain cardiology, but cardiac types of technology systems can, be applied to the brain. And they're looking at, hey, the brain is conducting billions of operations, in a nanosecond. And so we can't just go in to we go into the heart and we look at it and we say, hey, we need to do a single bypass or double bypass, and it's clogged in this area. We're going to need 5 stents, and they go in, they can do it. And they really know there's like a very clear, hey, I had a double bypass or a triple bypass. This artery was clogged or ventricle, whatever. With the brain, there's so much going on.
Yes.
that it, and it's working with your entire system. You poke your arm and it's like, well, it actually is not really feeling that. Your brain is communicating and saying, hey, that was cold, or that was sharp, or that was hot, or whatever.
Right.
And so it operates in such an incredible way that with epilepsy, it really is so unique, because the brain is trying to compensate and trying to work with different internal systems, and it's also working with external different stimuli with different medications, and it's trying to balance all this. And it was one of those that I thought about it, and I was like, man, there's, of course, everyone has their own journey with epilepsy.
Just to tag onto that, I feel like epilepsy is so different for every person, but for some reason there's like this common thread that we all understand, where from the lived experience of having seizures and medications and their side effects in the post-ictal state. It seems like there's just like, when, I don't know, for me anyway, anytime I connect with someone with epilepsy, there's something there that cannot be defined. That's like, even though we have completely different seizures, completely different types of epilepsy, there is like an understanding, and I can't put my finger on it. I can't explain it. But I do, despite the vastness and the craziness of the brain, I don't, and there's something that I feel like creates change once we are connected.
And that's that was part of it, was that the individual stories with the collection, that I think that's where we look at it and say each story, the lived experience is more important than ever. Just that I'll put on record as saying, like, that's what I believe.
100%.
Lived experience is more important than ever, with policy, with fundraising, with generating awareness, with really connection between us individually and connection between epilepsy communities, traumatic brain injury communities, is the lived experience, and really taking ownership of that, and not just saying I have epilepsy, but it's you have epilepsy, but you're a lived experience advocate for epilepsy, for this particular group, for your podcast where you bring on folks who have epilepsy. You're a lived experience advocate. And that's, or advisor, lived experience advisor. And these are the things where all of a sudden, I love it. Exactly. But it does have and that's what I kind of call myself, or when I work with different groups and universities and biotech companies, I say lived experience advisor. And that, I think, where I was originally going was, it was hard to connect because each story was different. It's like when we take ownership and place it next to an actual title and say, I'm a lived experience advisor within the epilepsy, traumatic brain injury, post-traumatic epilepsy, and neurocognitive diseases. Those are my specialties. Yes. That's where I'm a lived experience advisor. And I hope that something like that can help connect our stories, so that thread is something that we all know, and we recognize that this is a long journey. It's a long journey for a lot of people. I am very grateful. Those journeys are connected I'm not saying that it's this lived experience advisor, but there is a role that we play where it's like, wow, we're both lived experience advisors within the epilepsy space, yet I have never experienced what you've experienced. Like, I would love to learn more, because I've never had that. And I don't even understand how that could happen or what that feels like. And It's no longer a story. It's like an obligation to learn more, so that when I meet somebody else, I can say, you know what? I have a friend, or I have another, someone that I met, and they told me something similar to this. Like, can you tell me more? Because I think this is just incredible. And you two as lived experience advisors, like I think your stories, especially together, would be just remarkably impactful for so many people too.
Well, it's like you're describing the domino effect of connection. You know, it's like once you learn someone else's story, you can pass that story along and then connect those people, or you know, or maybe connect it to somewhere else that needs it. And I think that's just, I think that's really, really powerful. The power of sharing our experiences, as tough or as annoying as it might be, which we just described at great length. But I think there's real power in that. Well, Jack, thank you so much for joining me today. Before we end, though, I'm going to ask you 3 questions that have nothing to do with what we've been talking about.
Yeah, let's go.
Okay. Number 1,
false.
What? That was good. You got me, man. Number 1, what's your favorite color?
Royal blue.
Okay. Nice. Any
What's
particular
yours?
reason? Oh, no one's ever asked me mine. Red and light blue.
I like that. Yeah. Aqua blue is really nice. That's kind of, yeah. And I paint. One of my things is I paint like watercolors, but
you're an artist?
Well, I wouldn't say that, but so I used that's some
Those
of
are
my
beautiful.
but that's like one of my favorite colors.
So if you're not watching on YouTube, you should look on YouTube right now, because Jack is showing us his paintings, which I did not know you do, and that's very cool.
It's nice and relaxing.
Yeah, totally. It is just, I just doodle, but I can't.
Awesome too. I love that.
Yeah. It is what it is. It's your stress relievers come as they are, right?
Yeah. Painting's super fun, and I did it when I was at that. I think I might have mentioned, but when I was after my surgery, when I was in that little like 24-hour care facility for a couple of months, they had a day where it would just be like watercolor painting, and I would be with a bunch of like 70, 80, 90-year-olds. But my vision was so messed up that like I couldn't see, so I would just have to go like this far away from the paper.
Oh wow.
And I kind of felt like it was a rehabilitation for my vision.
Totally.
And but it was funny because a bunch of people in wheelchairs, and they're like, "We want food," and I'm like, "What's happening here?" So painting is fun. I encourage it to yeah.
Okay, question 2. If money and time were no option, like no issue at all, where would you go live for a month?
Where do you live for a month? I mean, I'm in paradise. Like, I don't.
You know what? Okay, never mind. I take back my question.
Maybe Italy. I loved it when I was there. But otherwise I just
you can't
stayed
go wrong
here.
in Italy. Yeah. You're like, why would I ever leave? And then number 3, what does it mean to you to be a friend?
It's family. It's everything.
Mm-hmm.
It's everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's beautiful. It's true.
Yeah. It's family.
Well, I really appreciate you taking the time for this conversation and all of your advocacy work.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, this has been great.
Doctor.
And just and very inspiring to continue to just connect with other people and share our stories. Yeah, you never know what can happen from it.
Yeah, we're gonna do great things, and lived experience folks out there would love to engage with them. But what you're doing is so incredible. It's an absolute honor and privilege to be here, and thank you. Thank you for everything you're doing.
Well, thank you too, man.